love, light, and healing. I'm Neriah, the founder of Iron City Biomechanics, where we help bridge the gap between healthcare and fitness. And today I want to talk to you about something that completely changed the way I look at pain, posture, and movement. But first, let me tell you a story. So, backstory, real quick, for those who may not have known, I served 9.5 years in the United States military, and back when I was in the military, I developed a shoulder impingement that I just could not get rid of. And when I say the shoulder impingement, I mean I could barely lift my arm over my head. Mind you, I was in my 20s during this time. Now, if you've ever served in the military, you know the culture. You don't complain. You don't talk about limitations. You just push through. And so that's exactly what I did. And so to try to help with some of the symptoms, I stretched it, I strengthened it, I did a lot of mobility work. I worked harder to try to, get rid of those symptoms. And I told myself eventually, as time goes on, I'm like, eventually, this will get better. It'll be fine. But it didn't. It did not, And looking back, what I didn't understand was that my shoulder wasn't actually the problem in the first place. My shoulder was just where the problem was showing up. And mind you, I had knee issues going on as well. But anyways, it's neither here nor there. That realization changed everything for me, because most people that think that pain is always local, like it's always that's the problem area. And so if your shoulder hurts, the shoulder must be the problem, but no, not necessarily. So a lot of people are like, oh, my neck hurts, so that must be the problem. If your low back hurts, the low back must be the problem. On and on and on, right? But the body doesn't actually work that way. The body is one ginormous interconnected system. And one of the biggest communication systems in the body is something called the fascia. Now, I know fascia has become a kind of a buzzword lately, so just stay with me here. So I like to explain it to my clients is to think of the fascia like a web that runs throughout your entire body. It wraps around your muscles, around your joints, around your nerves, around your organs. Everything is connected through your fascia. And one of its jobs is helping the body adapt and communicate. And that's the big one, the communication. But that brings me to my next point. This brings us to stress, right? Because what I eventually realized is that my shoulder wasn't just dealing with movement. I was doing all of the things, right? It was dealing with years of accumulated stress. Military life teaches you to stay ready. You got to stay alert. It's a saying we would say, stay alert, stay alive. You have to stay prepared mentally, physically, and that level of stress changes the body, not and obviously not always for the good. And so for me, the shoulders started to rise, my chest started to close down, my neck, would get tighter, my breathing became shallow, and my jaws, they would just stay clenched, even when I was sleeping and when I was awake. And so that's when my body started to brace more. And here's the crazy part. If that state lasts long enough, your body starts treating it as normal. So here I am in my 20s, like I'm 70 years old or whatever. And it doesn't do all those things because it's necessarily healthy, but it does those things because it's familiar. And I think that's what a lot of people are experiencing today. Maybe not obviously, the military stress, but the stressors that come with just life, work, family, um, bills, aging parents, going from being a busy parent to becoming an empty nester, health concerns, with either yourself or family members and just all the other responsibilities that we have, right? The body doesn't really care where the stress comes from. It just adapts to that stress. And the longer it adapts, the more those patterns become your natural default. And that's why so many people tell me all the time, my shoulders are always tight. My neck's always stiff. Having some people feel like they just can't seem to ever relax. They've tried different things like stretching and then all of those symptoms just continue to keep coming back. Well, what if the tension isn't just a muscle problem? What if it's a nervous system response that's showing up through by way the muscles? That's a completely different conversation. And so think about this now. Have you ever noticed how your posture changes when you're stressed? Like everything just feels a lot more stiffer. I don't know if you've had that awareness of yourself or not. You don't have to think about it in terms of, oh, my shoulders just fall forward or my head moves forward. Or for some people, their breathing starts to change and the body will close down. Those symptoms, those things are not, that's not random. That's just the body's protective mechanism. Your nervous system is trying to ultimately keep you safe. That's its job. The problem is that our bodies were designed for stress that ends. And that threat, as the threat passes, the body starts to relax. The fascia starts to release. Everything starts to return to normal. But modern stress often doesn't end. We always have things going on, right? It doesn't just shut off. But what happens is those things, it starts to accumulate. And when that happens, the body starts adapting to stress itself. That's why posture isn't always a discipline problem. It's often an adaptation problem, a nervous system problem, a communication problem, which is why simply telling yourself to stand up taller and be straighter, that rarely works. You've probably already tried it, where you pull your shoulders back, you sit a little taller, maybe take a couple deep breaths, and it feels good in that moment, but 30 minutes later you're right back to where you started. And obviously it has nothing to do with laziness or habits or different things of that nature, nutrition. It has nothing to do with anything of those things, or that you forgot to fix your posture. What it is that the system hasn't changed. Your nervous system didn't change. Even if you were conscious and corrected your posture, your nervous system didn't change. And so your body is returning to the pattern that it trusts the most. And here's another thing that people don't realize, that the body is an incredible compensator. It's remarkable at compensating. If one area stops doing its job, another area picks up the slack. Maybe the hips lose their mobility. Now the low back starts working harder. Maybe breathing mechanics aren't great. Now, now you have your neck and your shoulders, they're helping out. And maybe your feet aren't functioning well. How you absorb load every time you're walking. Now you're getting shin splints, or your knees, they start to take on extra stress. The body always finds a way, always trying to find that workaround. But every compensation or workaround comes with a cost. Eventually that compensation becomes pain. And that's usually when people start paying attention. So, what actually works? Well, first, we have to calm the system down. We have to let your nervous system know, like, hey, it's okay. You can relax. And so, one of the fastest ways to do that is through breathing, not just taking a deep breath, but learning how to use our diaphragm the right way, learning how to expand our rib cage, learning how to tell the nervous system, hey, it's okay. Again, you can relax. You don't have to stay in this fight or flight. Because when the nervous system starts feeling safe again, then the body starts letting go of that tension. It's that it's been holding to for who knows, months, years, decades. Secondly, we need movement. I can't stress this enough, but not just the typical exercise movement, but intentional, purposeful movement, because that teaches the body a different pattern. Because every movement that you perform is ultimately it's information. It's ultimately information. And so every step, every posture, every workout, your body is constantly adapting to the information that you give it. And that's why I'm not a big proponent of people that just, oh, let me just go do exercise workouts. All you're doing is just potentially giving the body bad information. And so the question is, what are you teaching it? What information are you teaching your body? And so let me give you 4 signs for those that want to know, like, how can I improve my flexibility or calm my nervous system or even know that this is for me. Number one, your posture gets worse when your stress goes up. If your posture gets worse when your stress goes up, that is a sign right there that your nervous system is overloaded. Number two, you can correct your posture, but it never stays the same. If your posture is constantly going back to bad posture, then your nervous system's overloaded. If your jaw, number three, if your jaw, your neck, your shoulders are constantly tight, no matter how much you stretch or do mobility work, there's a sign your nervous system's under attack. And number four, if you take deep breaths with your belly and it feels awkward or unnatural, all of those 4 things are signs that it's deeper than just your muscles, it's more so your nervous system. And because that's exactly for me, that's exactly what happened to me. My shoulders didn't improve because I worked harder. It improved when I understood what was actually driving the problem. And here's the good news. The body is super adaptable. The same way it adapted to stress, it can adapt to recovery. The same way it adapted to tension, it can adapt to relaxation. And so the same also, I guess I could say, even we can go on to say, the same way it learned dysfunctional patterns, it can learn healthier patterns as well, movement patterns as well. That's why I'm so passionate about this work, ladies and gentlemen, because every week I meet with people who think they're broken. They think that they're too old. You know, they think that the pain is just something that they have to deal with for the rest of their life, and so they just start to accept it, and then they realize something powerful that I ultimately came to a realization that the body is not broken; it's just adapting. And once you understand what it's adapting to, then you can start changing the input. And when the input changes, the information changes that you're giving it, the body changes too. And that's what we do here at Iron City Biomechanics. We help people stop chasing the symptoms and start really understanding the system behind them, behind those systems, and not system chasing again. All right. Because lasting change, it happens when you address the root and not just the result. And so I guess in closing, if this resonated with you, I'd encourage you to schedule a movement diagnosis with one of our fitness practitioners at ironcitybiomechanics.com. We'll look at how you're moving, identify patterns that may be contributing to what you're experiencing, and then build a plan specifically for your body. Not a generic program, but a program that's tailored specifically to what it is that your body needs. And so, again, I'm Neriah. Gratitude for being here. If you're not already, please subscribe to our channel to where we give, weekly education on how you can better improve your health and wellness. And like I always say, I'll see you whenever I'm looking at you.